Unit 1. Reporting and other legal obligations. This chapter provides an explanation of all relevant laws governing business operations in Slovenia as well as legal obligations which business entities are subject to. Slovenia is an EU member state. Hence, all EU regulations are enforced there, while EU directives are covered by the national legislation. The PIS portal provides an insight into all applicable laws, including their previous versions. Its administrators make sure that any possible changes previously made to a particular law are always included in the consolidated text presenting the current state of the matter. The most important acts that you should know are its current version is labeled ZGD1. This law stipulates fundamental corporate status regulations on establishing and running business operations by business entities, sole proprietors, related parties, economic interest groups, foreign companies' subsidiaries and their status transformation. Furthermore, obligations such as annual reports, books of account, accounting, balance sheets, legal relationships between shareholders, termination of the company, etc. are set out with this law. Code of Obligations, OZ, governs the basic principles and general regulations on all obligation relationships. For those obligation relationships that are governed by other laws, the provisions of the obligatory code shall apply for the issues not regulated by those particular laws. In principle, contracting parties can regulate their obligation relationships freely unless in contravention of the Constitution, compulsory regulations or moral principles. Unless expressly defined otherwise in the agreement, the provisions of the obligatory code shall apply. These provisions shall also apply where the agreement is contrary to or deviates from the law. Unless expressly defined otherwise within the industry, the provisions of this code shall apply to all types of contracts. The OZ code is comprehensive. It consists of 2 volumes. The first one is labeled General Part, the second one Special Part. In the first volume, explanations on the general characteristics of contracts, representation, obligations, offsetting, payment deadlines and creditors are presented. The provisions regarding insurance, travel, storage, other specificities of contracts, orders, safekeeping, licenses and guarantees are dealt with in the second volume. In Slovenia, the protection of personal data is regulated by both the European GDPR and a special national law, named Protection of Personal Data Act. Subject to this law are the obligations of personal data processors in view of protecting personal data and sensitive personal data. In this respect, the Information Commissioner is the authority in charge of providing advice to businesses by whom inspection is conducted. In case of violation, a company may be penalized by this authority. The provisions regulating the safety and health of the employees at their workplaces are listed in the Health and Safety at Work Act. Here, the rights and the obligations of both employers and employees are defined in view of safe and healthy working conditions, including the appropriate measures to be taken in this respect. This law specifies employers' responsibilities to implement measures for safe work, stipulates workers' rights and duties, planning of joint activities, risk assessment and other obligations. When employing staff, an entrepreneur shall contact an advisor for assistance with the necessary documentation including a safety statement and a risk assessment. According to the Act, a safety statement is mandatory and must be held by each employer. It must include at least the recording of potential hazards and dangers in the work environment, their assessment, risk assessment, and measures to ensure the safe and healthy work of employees. One of the main obligations of business entities in Slovenia is reporting to the relevant authorities. An annual report shall be submitted by any which company to FDI and AJPES by 31st of March. Its format shall correspond to the business entity's form and size. A limited liability company, for example, shall complete a balance sheet, a profit and loss statement, a tax return, and enclose corresponding annexes including the corresponding notes. Some reporting is done monthly. Salary calculation, Rec 1 report. Reports on travel expenses. Reports on all kinds of payments to natural persons, including rentals. Reports on practitioners or part-time employees. These reports shall be submitted to FDI, Financial Administration of the Republic of Slovenia. They may only be submitted electronically via the e-tax system called EDAVKI. An adequate rec form shall be used for reporting. A payroll report, using the 1ZM form, and a refund payout report shall also be submitted to the AJPES agency, monthly. VAT reporting to FDI via EDAVKI may be done monthly or every 3 months. First 12 months after acquiring the VAT ID number, all subjects have to report monthly. After 12 months, companies with a yearly turnover below €210,000 report on a 3-month basis, while companies with the yearly turnover over €210,000 report monthly. However, companies which are doing business with VAT payers from other EU countries have to report monthly regardless of the yearly turnover. Your client will also have to report to the public database of all business entities in Slovenia. AJPES is in charge of conducting quarterly surveys on the business entity's operations. The persons assigned for reporting are listed by SERS based on the sampling method. The list of these entities obliged to report is available online. To check whether someone is on this list or not, you simply enter their registration number in the AJPES website. In principle, the persons assigned for reporting are business entities, cooperatives and foreign companies subsidiaries with over 49 employees, but also certain business entities with fewer than 49 employees. The data acquired by the business entities is used to conduct analyses and calculations of performance indicators, including gross domestic product, GDP. Furthermore, based on the data obtained, future economic policies are proposed. All physical flows of goods between Slovenia and other EU members are reported to the Intrastat. These include commercial transactions, movements of non-purchase sale goods, return and replacement of products, as well as all other types of transactions listed on their website. Excluded from reporting to Intrastat are services, goods in transit, dispatches and receipts of goods listed in one of the annexes on their websites. All reports shall be submitted electronically. A digital certificate is required which needs to be obtained by any entrepreneur or authorized person. This can either be arranged at a public administration office or at a bank with the e-banking option available. The delay of non-issuance of a report is rather high, from €1,000 to €30,000 for a business entity and from €300 to €2,500 for the responsible person. The amount depends on the type of the report and the size of the company. In addition to the penalty, late payment interests have to be paid. All business entities have to keep an archive of the business documentation. What documentation should be stored and how much time it must be kept is defined by the following laws. Law on Value-Added Tax ZDDV1. Rules on the implementation of the Law on Value-Added Tax. The Tax Procedure Act. Companies Act. Slovenian Accounting Standards. Accounting Act. What must be kept permanently? Annual reports, the balance sheets prepared for FDI and AJPES. Payrolls and all documentation related to the calculation of salaries. A book of conclusions. The main book and a diary. What must be kept for 20 years? Contracts and accounts for the purchase and sale of real estate. Fixed assets register. What must be kept for 10 years? Complete documentation of bookkeeping events, issued invoices, invoices received, contracts for the purchase and sale of short-term financial investments and hire of short-term loans, transaction accounts, balance sheets. It is recommended that foreign investors leave the preparation of reports to experts from accounting services who have the knowledge and experience in presenting all the specific data required in the reports.